Hello and welcome to the debut episode of Create and Consume. Today I am joined by Bindu Rao, who is an comedian and a lot of stuff. So let's get to it and start our podcast to hear her awesome story so that it inspires all the fellow builders and creators in Build Space and beyond. Welcome, Bindu.
Thank you so much, Omkar, for having me on your show.
So let's start with a very brief introduction about you, and you can take us through your journey as of now.
Sure. So I was born in a small town called Udaipur in Tripura, and throughout my life, my dad had a transferable job where every 3 to 4 years I had to change the city, the school, and I was mostly the new kid in school. So I had to find ways to always, uh, survive, to be the funny one, to be the class prefect. So these were my ways of staying relevant, being a quizzer. So throughout my life, I've always been a quizzer. I've been a class perfect, a class prefect, and always the person whose teacher would ask questions to, and they would know who has the answers, the dependable one in school, college, and things like that. So I studied finance. I did my BBM and MBA in Bangalore. And after that, I realized after working for 4 years in HSBC that it was not my calling. I was actually looking forward to the event planning committee meetings where we would organize Tambola, we would organize student magazine articles from within the company. So I realized I was looking forward to more of the events I conducted for other people rather than my work, which was definitely a calling that okay, I should do something regarding events. And 2017 was the time when comedy was booming in India, and it was also the time when we had all honestly finished watching all the videos on YouTube. So I went to my first open mic, and the feedback I got was please continue doing comedy, and it will help you in some way or the other. So I've been doing comedy on and off since 2017, and when the pandemic hit, I started organizing shows on Zoom and starting from scratch again. So I got to experiment with a lot of formats. I got to interact and watch a lot of comedians who may not be from Bangalore but have great potential. And I was just giving them stage time. I was getting stage time. And there's also an inside joke in comedy, that those who aren't funny become producers. That is true for some of them. I hope it's true for it's not true for me also. And I realized that my calling was in dark comedy, in corporate comedy, in comedy where politics, religion, and cuss words were not involved. So it also attracted a lot of comedians who had a similar style, and I got to work with them exclusively. To be honest, I think I set my comedy goals so achievable that I got to open for Aditi Mittal, Neetu Parda, Suresh. I got to work with Namit Jain, who organizes Just BLR comedy mics, and which is one of the top venue in India actually. So I actually got to work with a lot of people just by the virtue of hanging out with people who are creative, who are creative. But I think there was a lot of learning curve after and before every comedy show because a lot of work would actually be done there. So for a regular person, it would be a 9 to 5 job, but for a comedian, a regular day starts somewhere in the afternoon where they're making lunch, then they're having very intense conversations about technique, comedy, how we can improve each other's comedy and things like that. And those conversations would continue even after uh, like night shows. So open mic is where like people go to try and test out their jokes. And to be honest, like 95% of the time you're not funny on stage. Like just imagine you go to work and 95%
You
time
bomb.
you're not, yeah, you're not good. You can hear crickets in the background. You're like, everyone is like drunk. Who is this newbie? Who is this amateur whom I'm having to listen to while I want to get drunk or while I want to enjoy my performance? You know, so you are
Yeah,
finding a lot of
that is a
times.
really interesting journey, and I can resonate with most of it because comedy is a very serious business, and I have tried it in a safe space in my company, so where people were quite accommodating and non-judgmental enough. But yeah, it is difficult to get people laughing, and relatability is always a factor, to make those kind of connections, and to make sure that everyone gets those connections. So it is hard. The journey that you spoke of really got me curious into how a class clown got actual opportunities to hang out with the big comedians, and how did that transition actually take place, like the big shots of comedies. How did you get into those circles? What kind of opportunities did you grab, and how did you get to those opportunities?
Sure, absolutely. So in 2017, when I was doing comedy on and off, I used to attend a lot of comedy shows also. So I became like that loner who would always be in the comedy crowd no matter what. Like there were times when comedians would forget their jokes and I would remind them that, oh, you were supposed to say this. And even that became like an inside joke that if they needed a scapegoat to continue the joke, I would be there. Uh, so to get in touch with big comedians like Aditi Mittal, uh, uh, like Kunal Rao, the easiest way to get in touch with them is to attend their workshops. Only if your style is very similar to theirs is another tag which I will add. For example, I wanted to know about comedy production. So I had uh, joined Jia Sethi's workshop, who runs Comedy Ladder in in Mumbai. So what she taught was like the discipline of being an artist, of how there will be so many distractions of wanting to socialize, wanting to be drunk or high all the time. But it's also important to have those times where uh, you know you finish your work, you finish your quota of writing jokes every day, even though you don't feel motivated enough. And it's a very solo sport which no one tells you about. That you have to wake up, you have to take that decision to like take a bath, dress well, then go to a comedy place, then be like, no, no, I'm falling behind in this bit. Let me work a bit hard by heading back home or going phone free for some days till I get to that result. So I learned these things from Jia Sethi, the discipline of being a comedy producer and the discipline of writing regularly. When I attended Aditi Mittal's workshop, it was more about introspection, and it was also about putting people in their spot of not being uncomfortable about themselves. Because for the longest time I thought comedy was about making others laugh, but in the process it's also about knowing yourself. uh, in Kunal Rao's workshop I learned about how to write news comedy. How do you turn facts into comedy? Which are the techniques which they use during East India comedy to make things work? And I also got in touch with like one of the EIB ex-employees who like gave me a very old PDF which was all about comedy techniques, which was written in the 1980s. So, to be honest, in comedy, it's a lot more easier to meet people because if both of you are comedians, you end up meeting each other at an open mic, at a show. You can just go to any comedian show and ask the organizer if you can meet the comedian before or after the show, or if you can get their email ID to get in touch with them. So that's the easiest way you can get in touch with comedians. Another way is to volunteer for their shows and to like open doors of auditoriums, direct people to the washrooms and water section. So that is also another way, because end of the day you will also take a picture with the artist. So that is a very simple way to make that happen.
You mentioned about these workshops and guided training sessions. Uh, how did they help, or how did they actually influence your personal style?
Right. So from these workshops, I got to try a lot of different styles. And when I was doing comedy in school, I got to experiment with a lot of formats. So I tried dark comedy, I tried roast comedy, I tried blue comedy where it's non-veg jokes and talking a lot more about sexuality and things like that. So I realized what I'm not good at. So it was very easy to deduce what I'm remotely better at than others, and then sharpening that skill rather than seeing that, oh God, I'm such a terrible political comedian. So why am I pushing myself in that, or why am I wasting my energy in something I'm not good at all? Or you can see the nervousness on my face when I'm saying things, or when I'm not meaning them. So that's all. That's also another thing which helped me realize that okay, you need to do some introspection also on what you're good, what you're not good at.
Yes. You are also doing really great work in bringing inclusivity in comedy. So I'd like to understand how it is that you got into this, and how are you trying to uh, demystify the LGBTQ stuff. And like, lot of comedians are trying to dabble it, but it is a very delicate dance. So how do you handle this kind of stuff?
Right, absolutely. So when I was working with Namit at Hasi Madhu, we made it a point that every lineup had two women in every show, no matter what. And we gave them more stage time because end of the day, if you get more stage time, you get to experiment with a lot more material. So I'm feeling bad for the guys, but they have a lot of uh, connects and they will make it work. But for women, like to find a safe space is very difficult because there have been times when I'm in a green room. Green room is where like the comedians hang out before or after a show. And there are times when people have told me to like take care of their bags and gone off for a tea break without me, or such things happen quite a lot. So I didn't want that to happen. And if a producer is also a woman, she will understand these dynamics, social dynamics, which may go ignored by a man. And to make comedy more inclusive, I feel like there should be more avenues for people from the LGBTQIA community. And in Maharashtra also, blue comedy is very famous, where it's Dalits doing comedy. So that is also picking up a lot. And one of my friend Ankur and Manal Patil are doing a great job at like marketing this event, pushing this event. They even shoot vlogs while traveling, so that the people who come to watch their show, they get an insight about who they are as people when they're not on stage. So that is also picking up a lot. And there are a lot of NGOs and a lot of people who want to connect with such artists also, to kind of forward their vision. So I feel it's always a mix of like commerce or a business plus an artist who will always make things work. So it's always about you finding the right partner for you as well.
That is so nicely put. Coming to the topic of like diversity, is there any funny incident that you can recount? Because like being diverse can actually lead to a lot of varied interpretations and varied misunderstandings as well. So, was there any funny incident around this theme?
So yeah, I still remember once at Drunkling in Kormanga, which is a pub right there. One of the guy comedians actually cross-dressed and came to do a spot that day on a Women's Day lineup. And I'm not even kidding. He made a beautiful woman, and he did like a really amazing set also. So that was probably, if you're watching Goma Bhai, this is for you. There's a comedian named Sachin, and he also features in like Zomato videos, and he has like 100K followers on Instagram. So I would love to learn from him how to improve my Instagram follower game as well.
Yeah.
Uh,
So, just so we are clear, June is a Pride month, and we at Create and Consume are 100% allies to the journey of understanding sexuality, understanding preferences, and understanding identity. And I am very glad that we are doing this. We are raising awareness at this podcast so that real societal issues are being talked about, and it will soon bring impact in the change. The thinking of people will definitely change when there is awareness, and there these topics are no longer hush hush or topic of taboo. So yeah, I am really excited that we are speaking about this, and we are making it more open via our podcast. So thank you about that.
Thank you so much. I wanted to add another thing that when you're unsure of a person's gender identity, it's best to ask them that, hey, my name is Bindu. My preferred pronouns are she and her. So what's your name and what are your pronouns? Is is the simplest way to act as an ally and kind of figure out why have they picked a pronoun as well. So this actually starts a conversation, and it also makes you think that okay, this is what they've chosen, this is why they've chosen it. So that's a great way to start the conversation, and they are always happy to answer these questions also.
Absolutely. So I was reading your introduction, and I saw that you also started as a finance. You were previously into finance, and then you transitioned to comedy. How does this kind of transition, and how does this kind of decisions, and how were you able to take them, and what led to it?
So to be honest, my work was not going well at all, and I thought ki might as well quit because it's not working. I'm not getting the promotion, or I'm not getting the recognition that I require from what I'm doing. So I just quit cold turkey, and parallel I was event coordinating for a speed dating company, and in the nights I was doing stand-up comedy. So my only advice to artists would be to have very good savings of 2 3 years and live a very minimal lifestyle, and like also get into the discipline of writing and discipline of finding structure to things. I think I struggled the most with that. Like, just imagine your whole day is free, and it's up to you on how do you want to spend it. Do you want to just go out, not do any work, or do you want to just sit and go through that excruciating pain of like looking at an empty page, not coming up with any ideas, not having any inspiration? So there are some days like those. So it's always good to like keep roaming around, like walking a bit, finding different things which inspire you. Like for me, going in public transport is what inspires me. If I sit in a bus, I get great ideas. If I sit in an auto, I get great ideas. So it's also about going through like those phases of not having ideas. So try to write down as many ideas as you can, and it may not make sense to you right now. So there are some ideas which I have written like 7 years back, which I'm able to implement now in probably something completely different. So yeah, don't discard ideas. Keep making notes of them in whichever form is comfortable to you, and get back to it when you feel uninspired.
Awesome, awesome. So the another question which pops into my mind is like comedy is a very personal and impromptu kind of setting. How does lockdown and the whole COVID change that for you?
So during the lockdown, I did get COVID twice, and for an year I couldn't taste salt. So anything would just taste tasteless for me. Uh, and to be honest, comedy was a great escape, and I would hit like 4 5 open mics each night, and I could come up with like 5 minutes of tried and tested jokes in a day, which I wouldn't have been able to do if everything was open and it was in person thing, because I would have to do a lot of talking to convince producers to give me a spot, for me to do a longer spot compared to someone else. So all of these dynamics do play, but in online it's a lot more easier. You can do like 8 spots and make 10 minutes in one day if you're smart about it. Or if you have written like 20 minutes and you want to try every variation of that joke. So it's also about having a game plan. Like in cricket, I'm sure you might have seen some batsmen get out just because of the change in speed of the bowling, or just in the difference in field placement. There is some irritating silly point sitting near the batsman, and that's why they're getting distracted, and that's why they hit a wrong shot. So comedy is so much about attention to detail, and also what's believable for you. Like for example, I will never do a joke about being the prettiest girl in the world, because I know I've always been like the heroine's best friend throughout my life. So I will always crack jokes which are closer to that, or about feeling insecure about like gaining weight, like thinking that will I stick to funny and lose weight, like having this short hair, like I was considering like buying a boat. So you should talk about situations which are true to you. To think about which are things which are believable to you. Like if you look at a person and don't do much about it, but you still can relate me to or link me to someone in your friend circle, which is always something you should do in comedy.
That is amazing, and it is interesting to see that such kind of experiences can also impact or change the course of comedy. So another question that I have is, what do you think are the essential skills for aspiring comedians?
I think as comedians, you should be very resilient. You should be very okay with getting rejected. The amount of rejection that you face in comedy is probably something I've never experienced besides that. So nothing scares me anymore. If there is any big change I'm not faced anymore. So my reaction towards change is not as like, oh my god, what will I do next? It's not like that at all. It's like, okay, it's a change. Let me see what I can do with it. So you get great with handling rejections. You get better at articulating things. So you get very like compact and precise and descriptive when you're saying things now. And the way you describe things get very visual and very detailed also. Like you're able to like give exact things of, I think this looks like this, or this reminds me of this, and you take them to another moment in your life or in pop culture which they are experiencing also. Like for example, I'm sure everyone has watched the movie Batman. and they've got this piercing look from their parents' eyes that you're the child who's going to kick me out of my ancestral home. So these are things which everyone has faced, but in different family dynamics probably. So it's also about getting those moments back because everyone has experienced it, forgot about it, but you need to remind to them again. So, yeah, the third skill is you should be able to visualize things, and the fourth skill is you should be able to simplify things to anyone. You should be like the class topper who's able to teach like someone younger than them, someone who's older than them, and someone of the teacher's age. If you are able to simplify things for other people, you'll be happy. So these are the four skills a person should have.
Nice. So, as I understand, presenting stuff and writing it in a crisp way, making sure that everything lands and everything is as per, like there is no lot of assumptions, and trying to keep it crisp and making sure that whatever you want to communicate it in the brief possible way, but add a layer of funniness or relatability to it. So I'm thinking how different is actual writing essays or writing poetry is different from cracking or making developing jokes.
All right. I think in poetry, usually the last word rhymes with the sentence in the third sentence. Like sentence number one, the last word, and sentence number three, the last word should rhyme, and two and four again should rhyme. So every piece of art also has its format. Like poetry has one format. Like shairi also follows a similar line of thought. Haiku is another. So with comedy, I would say it's always about leading them to somewhere they want to go and do something else. So
Changing the
comedy,
premise.
it's always about the surprise element or what you bring to the table. Like for example, this video is going viral, right? Of uh, they show a pet and a human touching a pet, and in the background the voiceover is after touching an animal you should wash your hands, but then they show the animal washing their hands and not the human. So so that is the joke. The easiest format to make is a meme, and I'll also tell you how I write something. So I take one idea and think about the ending and what are the 15 ways I can reach to the ending. So the first 4 5 thoughts are the one the one which are the meanest or the most opinionated ones. I'll put it out on Twitter. The one which are slightly predictable but no one else has done it, I'll probably put it on Instagram. So probably the best ones will go on Twitter, the second best ones will go on Instagram, and the ones which you are already thinking will go on YouTube because relatable or the simplest version of things work better on YouTube. And I always decide the ending and then work backward from there. And I try to pick one topic and try to write 15 minutes about it and cover as many things as I can about it. Is the approach I take.
It's nice, and thank you for explaining us your thought process about comedy. And I hope that people who watch this learn from it and try making jokes which land always. The another question I would like to ask is how, like, what is the weirdest incident that you can think of, and how did you make that more funny? Like improv, were there any? Have you tried improv, or were there any funny incidents when you tried improv?
Oh yeah, the first day I tried improv itself, the scene which was given to me was I am the mother of a vampire. I am also a vampire, and my kid is craving chicken. Sorry, non-veg, which is also a human being. So it happened to be a Saturday, and like my first instinct was, don't eat non-veg on Saturday. Otherwise, God will not bless you and things like that. Because
Oh, a
in
vampire fearing
Saturday,
god.
yeah, in
Nice.
like a devoted mom and religious vampire. So my first instinct was like I went on stage and I was like, if you do this, paap lagega, and like you'll be cursed and things like that, or like to kind of hit her in some way. But my first instinct is like, oh, I wanted to hit her, but it's Saturday, no, I can't even do that. And like the crowd were like screaming, like slap her, slap her. Like, what is this? We met her like 5 minutes ago. How can I slap her? So it was also all about like being a mom, being in that character, and whatever the crowd was giving me, I had to work with that. So that was a lot of fun. And it was complete opposite of doing stand-up where you are much more prepared, where you have a script. But here you have to also continue the story with what your scene partner is contributing to you. Like, what do they feel like doing? And you just add on to that rather than trying to add more elements which are yours. If one person is leading the scene, you go with that. So in stand-up comedy, if you feel it's entirely your fault, but in improv, if someone is kind of leading you somewhere and then you feel it's completely your fault. So you have to be much more receptive and listen a lot more to not just their words, but their body language, what they're trying to tell you with their body language. So it has a lot to do with listening and speaking, and also to speak the least. You can you can just speak using expressions or just one sound or yeah, try to do that as much as possible.
So observe, listen, and try to make ridiculous claims to keep it funny.
Yeah, whatever is true to your character and true to the scene.
So like we talked a lot about comedy. Now, if we have to draw parallels and how have these skills shaped you up as a person?
Right. So in comedy, you have to be a lot on stage, but after every show, you also speak to a lot of comedians, the people in the crowd. So it improves your social skills quite a lot, and you also become a lot more better at marketing yourself, trying to find a corporate gig from the crowd itself, or trying to make your own emailer list or WhatsApp announcement list through going to these venues. So a lot of people can learn a lot of outreach, brand partnership, negotiating deals, closing deals. You get to learn a lot about HR aspects of life, where it's you're managing a community, you're managing your own work, then you're managing your friends, uh, managing your time, and like usually people have like executive assistants, but here you are doing every piece of work. So during that also you'll figure out what you're slightly better at than others. Like, are you good at like getting people's numbers? Then yeah, great. You could be great at like outreach programs or community manager roles. So in a way it also helps you figure out what you're good at, what you're not good at, what you should do more of, what you should do less of, what is taking more time but not giving you the rewards, what is what you're spending least amount of time but it's giving you the reward. All of these things. You also get better at social media. You get to edit your own videos. You get to make your own personality online and figure out what is sticking with the audience, which are the things they are liking more. So it's also like getting leads, leads or getting more work through your social media. Just by the virtue of being more active there, you also tend to get work.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. Another question which I'm thinking right now is like a lot of comedy is derived from pain or sadness, because this might not be generally accepted, but it is an observation that a lot of greatest comics had some kind of streak of sadness or depression in them. So how true is it for you, or for a lot of comedians that you know?
I think a lot of comedians I know are suffering from some form of like depression, ADHD, or somewhere on the spectrum, and all of these things. Because when we were growing up, we didn't know how to tackle these situations, or which is the mental health professional we should go to get diagnosed, which is the right person to be our psychologist or a psychiatrist, or does a counselor work better for us? So these are the aspects no one taught us, uh, and we have like very weird thoughts. I'll be very honest about it. Like creative people have very weird thoughts. We just tend to say it out loud a lot more than others, because we are all weird in our own way, and we are okay being weird around each other also is another thing. So there is a sense of community, and there is a sense of you being able to share very strange things, and the other person is like, hey, I've thought of that also. Like for example, when I'm angry at someone, I think of thoughts that I want to like push them in front of a bus, or I think of thoughts that where is the serial killer when you need one, and things like that. But I can say this point blank to a comedian, but not to a person who doesn't have the context of, okay, this person is a dark comedian. She thinks of death probably more than any other person you've come across. She is a cat person also, so she appreciates like uh, being, uh, how do you say this? Being a bit to the point, cut to cut, very crisp. So there are some things which people pick up from you, and if they don't, you're just like a weirdo hanging out in a crowd which is probably not yours. So I would always suggest that try different things and figure out where are the people who would like to listen to you are hanging out. So yeah, I feel it's comedy is definitely an outlet, because they're trying to tell their friends all of these things, but no one is listening. But on a stage, you have to listen to a person because they have a mic, and yeah, you owe them that respect. So
So what I'm understanding is humor and comedy is subjective, and you have to think on those and act as per the audience reaction and respond accordingly.
yeah, absolutely. You should definitely read the room, reach the venue early, and figure out what is the crowd like. Like for example, once I was attending a show, and maximum of the audience members were women. Like half of them was kitty party, and the other half was bachelorette party. So all the men were getting heckled that day, and like being called cute and everything. So it was actually very interesting to see that, because I would face that all the time. So I'm like, okay, now you know what it's like to be a cute guy in a crowd like this. So it actually pushes you to also be objective, and to kind of do your work despite all of this happening. So it does
So
make you.
how do you actually find your comfort zone and the level at which you should be probing deep down?
So, for example, in a lineup of 10 people, I always try to go fourth or fifth, because by this time, second or third act is when they are warmed up enough. And I also see who are the most responsive people in the crowd, who are answering everything, or who want to talk to you also. So I can try to pick those people, and before going on stage, if I have anything interactional, I try to tell them to play along. And usually they do because it's a woman asking a man, so things are in my favor. And like if there's no one in the crowd, I ask a comedian to play along, and I will be their support system when they are doing that, or when they need any help, like finding out what can be improved in their stuff. So that is something I do. Yeah.
So you have been performing physically into comedy clubs, and after the lockdown, you also tried virtually on to Zoom and other platforms. What were the similarities and what were the differences across these physical and virtual mediums?
I think physical, it's a lot more. You need a lot more energy, a lot more stage persona, a lot more body language to say what you want, to convey what you want to say. In online, you can get away with not giving you 100%. There are things like there is lag in the internet, or your punchline gets a reaction like 10 minutes after you put a joke, but then you're kind of your mind goes off because they laughed a bit late. So now you have to rewire your set to like either going very fast or slightly slower, and then figure out where they laughed, and then kind of again redo the set in the space they are hearing. So in offline, it's a lot more like you just know if it's a hit and miss. The reaction is instant. In online, the reaction is slightly delayed.
So you have also been organizing events like this and a lot of events. What were your best moments, or what were the things that you learned during organizing such events?
I learned that it's good to keep your ego aside. Always keep your ego aside, and you just focus on the comedy. And you always have like 2 3 people in the backup who are always ready to do a spot. Is what I've learned in comedy, in offline and online gigs as well. That there will always be like one or two people who don't show up, who don't even tell you why they didn't show up, or who don't have the respect for you, or they're like, okay, this is a free spot, why do I even show up? So that is also kind of taking away stage time from someone. So I would rather work with someone who's always ready to be on stage, try new material, is what I've learned. And in offline auditorium shows, I've actually realized a lot of things about. It's also good to keep your ego aside and just help people and treat it as a job, the volunteering job. It's not a glamorous one. You have to like stamp people on their hands, or make them wear like the ticketing wristband, or direct them to the nearest like grocery shop, medical shop, where is the water cooler, where's the washroom here, what are the eateries nearby, giving them directions about that. It may not sound as glamorous or as great, but I think that grind is also required to see the kind of work which goes behind the comedy walls, like the type of mics a person uses. Imagine you're in a spotlight, and that spotlight is so bright. Like you can't, like the spotlight is so bright, beyond the first 4 5 rows, you cannot see anything. So you just have to like tune yourself into making it look like you're looking at everyone in their eyes. Like people do that. They make it feel like they're looking at you, and you cannot check your phone those times. So it's also a lot of training, I would say.
That is so cool, and I also got a new meaning of the spotlight effect, that it can literally freeze you
Yeah,
if you have a spotlight beaming at you.
yeah, absolutely. It's so much pressure. Just imagine everyone has paid a lot of money to see you. Some people have even got their friends to see you. and within 5 minutes you start melting because the spotlight also, it's not just a light, but it it's so it causes so much of heat. Just imagine in the night you're sitting in front of the sun. It just feels like that. You have to ignore that feeling and then continue with the jokes also. So it's a lot of like tuning in, tuning out, being in the movement, uh, like trying to stop hecklers while making sure everyone else has a good time also. Like you are always taking the audience with you.
You're doing a lot of cool stuff like organizing comedy shows, performing at comedy shows. Uh, how did you actually find about the nights and weekends project of Build Space?
So I had come across this on Fueler community. It's a community for writers, and a lot of startups do hire writers from Fueler.io. And someone had posted about it in the jobs group that, okay, this is something interesting. So I happened to open that WhatsApp group that day. Otherwise, I have a lot of unopened WhatsApp groups. And I was like, okay, what's the worst that could happen? I'll not get selected. So I might as well apply. So after doing comedy, that's become my mentality. Uh, like before, I would not put myself out there as much, but because of comedy, I'm like, what's the worst that could happen? And you just take a lot more chances in those, and don't discount yourself before you put yourself out there. So I just filled the form, and I think everyone who applied got through, but very few will go through in the later stages. So
So
I
the
just
whole
found
idea
it
of
very
Build Space is
nice.
accountability,
Yes.
and seeing which people have the intent and actual drive to stay consistent and stay disciplined enough to go through the routine of 6 weeks and build something that the world likes. So speaking of this, what are you building for Build Space?
So I am starting a podcast too.
Oh, that's
Uh, this,
nice.
this would be about marriage because I think there are enough podcasts about dating, and a lot of people who run these are in their 20s or teenage. And I feel there are a lot less people talking about marriage or what isn't working in the arranged marriage system. And I don't listen to a lot of voices of people who are divorced, who are widowed, like who are separated for a reason and things like that. So society still doesn't accept these people as much, and I feel that is also a great way to start off this topic with. Like just because someone is married doesn't essentially mean that they're happy, and just because someone is divorced doesn't essentially mean that they're not happy now. So it's also about having those conversations because a lot of my friend circle, they're either married with a kid and I can't relate to them at all, or are doing fantastic in their career because like they had a bad marriage and they use work to express themselves, and kind of they've diverted their like negative energy towards doing something productive instead. So I've seen both the parallels, and I think I relate to the second parallel a lot more, of those who aren't married yet and are divorced, single, and in a slightly older age group, I would say.
That is so awesome, and I'll definitely check your podcast with my parents. That is needed at my home too, because I also get this kind of pressure, not exactly pressure, but yeah, the society expectations and stuff is different across different generations. So I
Yeah,
really see that this can be a very good talking point, and it can change the thinking of a lot of people and make them more
yeah,
flexible.
yeah, absolutely. I also wanted to start a conversation about this with multiple generations, because what our parents saw is like they met someone and within the second meeting the engagement is decided, kind of days they've seen. So now they don't understand the decision fatigue or the need for everyone that, hey, I can do slightly better than this. That feeling they don't understand it. And like I feel like these conversations should be had with multiple generations and also get their perspective on this. Then only they'll be more involved in the process and they will also want better things for their kid or their grandkid involved in this process.
So, what are your plans after Build Space? Any specific plans or projects that you would like to pursue more, or do something more, or do something less?
So I think I'm always on a lookout to start writing communities because I feel there's a lack of habit building there or there's a lack of discipline there. Because I think it's also a profession where you are alone at home and it's up to you whether you want to do the work or not. So if there is a group where it's just everyone on Zoom or online where we are just focusing on our work and doing things and just giving an update, I think that will also work out great. And it could be a great like alternative to like in-person working. There are a lot of women who know they don't want to step out of the house because they have a kid or they have a pet, and there's a lot of housework which needs to be done also. So yeah, I came across Focus Mate, and I felt like that was a very good idea. You could meet people from different places in the world while you're working. And you only give updates at the beginning, at the end of the call of what you're up to and what you're doing. And I felt like that is an idea which is here to stay also.
I think writing has always been a very super individualistic activity. That is, you have to be a lone wolf, you have to think creatively, you have to go into depth, you have to go into breadth. But this angle is quite interesting to make it a group activity and try to learn from uh, everyone and see how it goes. It looks like you can get more effective and try to cover more base in this
Yeah,
kind of format.
yeah. Even I think picking professions where it's very individualistic would also be great, like authors, podcasters, content creators. That's also a very lonely journey which no one tells you about. We all see the glitz and glamour, but it's a lot of discipline, it's a lot of hard work, it's a lot of not partying to get things done, which a lot of people don't understand. They just see the money, but it is a lot of hard work. If you're doing everything alone, it's a lot of hard work.
Speaking with you, I completely get the fact that you are not just a comedian, but you are doing so many things under the hood, and it's like seeing a duck who might appear very calm, but it is pedaling at the speed of light beyond the surface of water. So yeah, it is very nice to see that people are engaging in a lot of diverse talents and trying to gain skills in fields that may not be relevant to them. So it is very heartwarming to see this.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think I would also give a suggestion for people who are like single, either like tired of dating or want to are very serious about marriage but aren't able to find someone. To find communities which are single friendly or which are hobby based, because I think I found solace in that there are other people like me, they're also going through the same thing, and that in a way brought us closer, because we are all in the same boat, and we bond over food, we bond over like potluck, going to Kabban Park and things like that. So I feel having those communities is also very important to stay sane. Otherwise, there's a lot of family pressure to get married or to have some social status and things like that. So it's better to have a like social group which works for you.
Yes, completely agree. And I think with a lot of talk and lot of awareness, this this would be the trend, but it will take some time for that change to creep up on people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so with that, I think we are close to our final segment, and I would like to know about your closing thoughts that you would like to share with all the builders and everyone that is listening to this podcast.
All right, I think as a comedian, I would always recommend people to put themselves out there on Twitter because Twitter appreciates personality in people. You don't have to fit into a box, and you can talk a lot of like NSFW stuff over there. And once you create your voice is when you come to Instagram, or you can just have your own Substack or emailers and talk about one two topics every week. And it doesn't have to be perfect. You're just like writing so that you get to that point of writing slightly better, writing slightly more structured. So Substack is a great way to like put your thoughts out there in the world, and to connect with influential people. So one of my friend actually is learning how to write a novel from the author of Killing Eve. Just because she was active on Substack and she kind of commented on his stuff. Is there any course you're doing, or can I learn writing from you? Is when we started creating a course about it, because many people did comment about it. So you can connect with a lot of influential people on Substack because they're off social media, or to be more productive in general. And I would also recommend you to kind of shoot your shot every week. There's this lady named Ruhi Kazi, and she's done around 100 episodes with people in the VC world of things. And every week she puts out and tags people saying that, hey, can you connect me with this person? Or can you find me a venue which is free of cost? Or can you find me like an audiovisual guy who could sort my podcast for this episode in this venue? So I feel like she's doing a great job as a business podcaster, and like she's connected with some like fantastic contacts which she got through like Twitter, through cold emailing people, through following up every week, despite hearing a no. She's like, okay, it's a no today, but when will you be available next time? So always like don't discount yourself, put yourself out there, because things do happen, and it's not just a dream, it will come true a lot sooner than you know. Things will come true. You just have to write that email quickly and be weird about it. Just do it. So I would recommend people to just take more chances in life and go to
Yes.
more events which make them more awkward, so that the awkwardness goes away and they're much more confident.
Yes, I completely agree, and it is like you have to be weird, you have to be authentic, you have to be crazy, and you have to always be vocal about what it is that you need, and help will always be provided.
Yeah, that's so true.
Thank you so much, Bindu. Thanks for being on the podcast, and I'm sure a lot of people learned a lot about comedy and a lot about being a good human with this. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Omkar, for having me again. I can't wait to watch this episode and all the others you're releasing.
Sure. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.